You have no idea. Do you know who this council is? Who these people are? I'm going to give you about 5 seconds to comment who you think these people are below. Don't cheat. Alright? If you guessed that this is the Anunnaki, then you are correct. They lied to you about the Anunnaki. They lied to you all. This video is going to make a lot of people angry, so this is your last chance to leave. The Anunnaki is not what you think. And those who have taught you about the Anunnaki have been taught by teachers and have been taught by false teachers. And their teachers have been taught by a man who either was mistaken or misleading. Here's the story that they told you. On a planet called Nibiru, there's a very developed species called Anunnaki. They somehow have messed up their ozone layer. This devastates their agriculture and their societies, and there is an environmental crisis. But they find out that there's a material called gold. Yes, and that they can wield gold, then they can use it to close the ozone layer. But there's one big problem. They don't have any, or at least not enough. So they still cannot close the ozone layer. Because of all the food scarcity, a rebellion breaks out. And Alalu unalives the king of Nibiru. Then he takes the throne. The Prince Anu, the rightful heir, defeats Alalu and forces him to run off. And then Anu decides to launch into outer space in a spaceship to find gold. Alalu finds this place called Earth, and he is forgiven for his sins, and they come to Earth to get this gold. So they land in Mesopotamia and they build a city. The Anunnaki realize that it's really hard to mine gold, so they enslave an alien race to do the work. Well, the alien race gets angry, they rebel, so they still need somebody to work it, so they find a primate-like being and they mix their DNA with this primate-like being and create humans. First, it fails and they create monsters, but eventually it works, they create humans. And they were all males, and they were called Adumu, and the females were called Hiva. Humans thrive, they're able to build cities, mine gold, they're invited into a land called Eden, which is a sacred garden. Relationships between humans and Anunnaki is forbidden, but Enlil falls in love with a human, creating the Adapa. Let's go over all the things that are completely untrue about that story. There is no planet called Nibiru that's mentioned in the text. Nibiru is mentioned, but there's no planet. Anunnaki as planetary beings, again, this is not mentioned. They're gods of Earth, the underworld, of the heavens, but not specifically a planet or a planetary travel or spaceships. There's no mentions, not that the scholars say there's none, and I checked, I didn't find any mentions of the Anunnaki mining gold for their atmosphere. Now these myths do talk about the creation of humans, but not in nearly as detailed as this interpretation does. DNA and things of that nature. Hybrid humans, monsters, it doesn't mention any of that. And it doesn't mention Adumu or Hive, especially not in the way that this interpretation does. In fact, the person obviously took a lot from Genesis and put it into their story, even though there are stories that they share in common, like Noah's Ark. Where does all this false information come from? Well, his name is Zachariah Sitchins. This man, I think, is a very intelligent man. He's also self-taught in the language that he was translating to try to understand these stories. You also have to understand at the time there was a lot of crises, environmental issues being talked about in his time. This is the 1900s, by the way. But also people were just starting to translate these tablets. And so this language and learning this language was fairly new, so he made a lot of mistakes. For example, the way he translated Anunnaki. He broke up Anunnaki. You'll hear a lot of people do this because it comes from this man. He interprets them individually. Anu, heaven, Na-tu, and Ki, sky. But that's not how the language works grammatically. In fact, the Sumerians didn't even call them the Anunnaki. The Assyrians did. The Akkadians. The word was originally Anuna, meaning Anu's children or a royal bloodline. This is important because this is what he based the entire ancient alien theory off of. See, he interpreted as Anu or Anunnaki, meaning sky to earth. So beings who come from above down, aliens. But that's not actually what it meant. And A lot of people have made theories based off this man's theories, and if we're going to be responsible and conscious and intellectual and philosophical and truth seekers, we have to look for actual truth. We have history channels I like to watch, You in History, pushing this stuff. If you want to read the real stories, go read the Epic of Gilgamesh and Numa Elish. Those are really good starting points. If you're interested in learning about humanity, what happened to us, where things are going, and how to get out the matrix, you need to go read the book called FAMS, Food, Forest, Foraging, Hunting, Anti-Fragile Modern Society. The audio version is free. It's giving you actual lessons on how to escape the matrix and telling you how the world actually works. It's in a link at the top of the page. I love you all. Let's talk about this in the comments. How do you feel about the Anunnaki? Peace.
Virtually every major deity in the Sumerian Anunnaki pantheon was regarded as the patron of a specific city and was expected to protect that city's interests. The deity was believed to permanently reside within that city's temple. One text mentions as many as 50 Anunnaki associated with the city of Eridu. In the narrative of Inanna's descent into the netherworld, only the 7 great Anunnaki are mentioned. They were thought to possess extraordinary powers and were often envisioned as being of tremendous physical size. The deities typically wore melem, an ambiguous substance that covered them in terrifying splendor. Melem could also be worn by heroes, kings, giants, and even demons. The effect of seeing a deity's melem on a human is described as nai, a word for the physical tingling of the flesh. Deities were almost always depicted wearing horned caps, consisting of up to 7 superimposed pairs of ox horns. They were also sometimes depicted wearing clothes with elaborate decorative gold and silver ornaments sewn into them. The ancient Mesopotamians believed that their deities lived in heaven, after an earlier history of visiting Earth in the mythological texts, and that a god statue was a physical embodiment of the god himself. As such, cult statues were given constant care and attention, and a set of priests was assigned to tend to them. These priests would clothe the statues and place feasts before them so they could eat. A deity's temple was believed to be that deity's literal place of residence. The gods had full-sized barges which were normally stored inside their temples and were used to transport their cult statues along waterways during various religious festivals. The gods also had chariots, which were used for transporting their cult statues by land. Sometimes a deity's cult statue would be transported to the location of a battle, so that the deity could watch the battle unfold. The major deities of the Mesopotamian pantheon, which included the Anunnaki, were believed to participate in the assembly of the gods, through which the gods made all of their decisions. Out of the many incredible artifacts that have been recovered from sites in Iraq where flourishing Sumerian cities once stood, few have been more intriguing than the Sumerian king list. An ancient manuscript originally recorded in the Sumerian language, the Sumerian king list is a register of the kings of Sumer, ancient southern Iraq, from Sumerian and neighboring dynasties. The list includes their names, supposed reign lengths, and the locations of official kingship. What makes the Sumerian king list so unique is the fact that it blends apparently mythical pre-dynastic rulers with historical rulers who are known to have existed in real life. The first fragment of this rare and unique text, a 4,000-year-old cuneiform tablet, was found in the early 1900s by German-American scholar Hermann Hilprecht at the site of ancient Nippur, and his results were published in 1906. Since Hilprecht's discovery, at least 18 other exemplars of the King's List have been found, most of them dating from the second half of the Isin dynasty. No 2 of these documents are identical. However, there is enough common material in all versions of the Sumerian King List to make it clear that they are derived from a single ideal account of Sumerian history. The rulers in the earliest dynasties are represented as reigning fantastically long periods. After the kingship descended from heaven, the kingship was in Eridug. In Eridug, Alalim became king. He ruled for 28,000 years. Alal